Radio broadcasts and podcasts covering important legal news and developments, Long Island centric. With your hosts, Chris McGrath, Esquire, and Robert Sullivan, Esquire.
Welcome to Long Island Law Today. That's right, folks. It's Chris McGrath. I'm back in the big seat. Bob Sullivan off today. He's eating his crumb buns at his kitchen table. My partner, Deanne Caputo, is here with me, and we're going to talk about the events that have occurred during the past week. Deanne, one of the events that occurred that everyone's talking about is our case, Andrew McMorris in Suffolk County, our little Boy Scout who is doing what every single parent would want their child to be and do, and that is making this world a better place when he was tragically killed by a drunk driver named Thomas Murphy. The case was on for sentencing, and unfortunately there was a delay. Talk a little bit about that, Deanne.
Good morning, everybody, and it's honored to be on the show this morning. Andrew McMorris was an exceptional little boy. He wanted to be a pilot when he grew up. He was artistic. He was a Boy Scout, and he absolutely was loved by all. So essentially what happened was in December of last year, Thomas Murphy is found guilty. He had counsel initially, and there really was a movement which showed that his attorney wanted him to just take ownership. He was willing to, and it looked like some kind of plea deal was going to be struck. And then what happened was he switched counsel. The tides changed drastically, and they took it to trial. Well, he's found guilty, and he was found guilty on a number of charges. And what happened was COVID occurred.
Well, wait a second, Deanne. He was found guilty in December of last year.
Correct.
Okay? COVID didn't happen until March. This guy hasn't spent 1 hour in jail, and that is a travesty of this criminal justice system. 700
days since Andrew's been dead. He's found guilty of aggravated vehicular homicide, driving while intoxicated, vehicular assault, other things. And what happens is now we have motions. The motions appear early of 2020 this year in the judge's chambers to set aside the verdict based on two factors. One factor is defense claims he has new evidence, putting these Boy Scouts in the roadway, which I'm not sure that makes a difference based on the VTL. And then he also wants to bring up the fact that he believes there's jury tampering. But Chris, you and I sat in that court and we heard the judge read the letter from juror number 8, I believe. And it was made very clear that juror, who's actually referenced as being one of the jurors who had to reprimand others, stated to the judge wasn't true at all. She was constantly pulled by an investigator, by defense counsel, and she felt on her own accord, or he, to write a letter to the judge stating that there was no misconduct. They were a very organized group. They followed all the rules. They deliberated properly, and he's guilty. You know, the defense really wants him to get a second chance. Andrew doesn't get that, Chris.
Well, forget this second chance. This is a games played by the defendant. Defendant comes into court the other day, on the day of sentencing, smiling. He thinks this is a big joke. Absolutely. That he killed this little boy. And you know what? Pretty soon that smile's going to get wiped off his face because these delays are going to end. This judge is going to have that hearing, and this guy is going to do exactly what he should do, be in jail. And by the way, until that time comes, okay, I'll tell you right now, in my opinion, the people and the families in Suffolk County will not rest because their kids are at risk until this criminal, gets put in jail.
You know, Chris, it's very true because, as you know, in being in court with the family, as we always are, since we're handling the civil aspect of this case, you know, when we saw the turnout that they needed a surplus room, even during COVID, and because of the attention this is getting and the support this is getting, these people aren't going away. I actually, like I said, 700 days since he's passed away, and they are as supportive as ever. So I agree.
These delay tactics are not making the people in Suffolk County happy. I'll tell you that, because they expect justice in our criminal justice system because of the bail reform law in Albany, among other things, just is not getting it done. And we're seeing that with the increased murders in the city, and something's going to have to change. And I've always said that when you have one party in power, and it doesn't matter which party is, Republican or Democrat in Albany, right now it's the Democrats. When you have one-party government, you get bad laws. And we certainly have that on the bail reform law. We now have incredible delays with people who are being found guilty and not going to jail. Heck, we even have some criminals getting out of jail for fear that they're going to get COVID. The rights that the criminals have now.
It's unbelievable.
Who is speaking for these victims? Not only Andrew, but everyone else. It's outrageous. I've handled so many of these drunk driving cases over the last 38 years. And every one of them kind of stick with you a little bit more because of the horrific injuries and deaths. Anybody wants any information on this case or any other case, give us a call, 516-742-0707. There is a civil case. Obviously, we get a lot of calls on that. And the day's going to come when Thomas Murphy is going to be in a jail sitting across the way from Chris McGrath, and he's going to have to answer the questions. And let's see how much he smiles on that day.
And I can't wait for that day. I hope he gets the maximum. He faces 25 years, and he deserves every bit of it, especially with the delays. It's horrible.
And Deanne, I hope when I'm gone and God takes me off this earth and you're still here that you attend those parole hearings and you tell that parole board who's over there, don't let this guy out of jail. He's a danger to all children in this county.
I will forever do that, McGrath. You know that.
Okay. Let's keep going, because as long as we're on the topic of drinking and driving, what we're seeing now with a lot of teenage kids home, parents are having parties at their house, saying, okay, it's a controlled environment. If you're going to drink, let's drink at my house. Well, that's a really bad decision that's going on. Tell us why that's such a bad decision.
Yeah, Chris, a lot of people want to be their kids' friends, and they're sitting there and they're having people over so they're not gallivanting during COVID and so that there's a safe place to drink. Well, it's a horrible idea, and the reason is because our laws in New York State make you liable. And also from a criminal aspect, you can be fined, and they're hefty fines, and they increase. And as a parent, you can actually also face jail time. We've had a lot of kids where they come and they're injured, or there's an adult who's injured by a minor who's drinking at someone's house, and we bring lawsuits, and people like to, put their hands up and say, well, I didn't know what was going on. But you need someone like us. You need a skilled attorney, because there's many ways now where you could find out if the parents who have these parties are knowledgeable, if they're procuring the alcohol, if they're getting them the alcohol, if they know the drinking's going on. There's a lot of technologies in homes. There's Ring cameras. People have cameras within their house now just because it's an easy thing to do. I actually had a case where, the father wanted to claim he had no idea his son and the friends were drinking. The guy goes out, who was drinking at their home, has the girlfriend in the car. They're arguing. Car flips over, and she suffers horrific injuries. It's unbelievable she survived. And, with that, we were able to find cameras. He clearly knew that there was drinking going on. And there are laws, it's 11-100, which basically says you're liable if you knowingly contribute by furnishing the alcohol or assisting in procuring it. And they're minors. So it's just a bad, bad idea. So if you have a case and you want any information about it, definitely call our firm, 516-742-0707, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you about it.
Well, in Newsday this week, they talked about cross-endorsement of sitting judges. And that's something that I've been involved in for many, many years.
Absolutely.
And promoting that, because it hurts when a very, very good judge who's found well qualified by either the Nassau or the Suffolk County Bar Association's bipartisan judicial screening committee just loses an election, and we lose an experienced jurist. So the way the process works, and a lot of the people who ask the questions of why would both major political parties endorse a particular judge together, and the reason is because the chairman in Nassau County, Joe Cairo of the Republican Party, and the chairman of the Democrat Party, Jay Jacobs, they both feel, as does Chairman Jesse Garcia and Chairman Richie Schaefer in Suffolk County, that we need a well-qualified judiciary to handle the cases for the public. And the best way to do that is to keep the experienced judges who have shown that they've served with distinction and have been found well qualified by a bipartisan judicial screening committee on the bench. Now, I've been chair of that committee twice. You're currently on the committee. But it's very, very important that when the public comes into court on a case, now remember, someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. And the person who wins is going to be happy. The person who loses is not going to be happy. But the reason the person is not going to be happy is because, obviously, a judge sat on the case. They didn't find in their favor, but they gave them the shot that they deserve, as anyone deserves when they come to court. And that's really what everybody expects and what we all deserve. So when they write an article about cross-endorsing judges who have been found well qualified, that article should be a positive one. And I understand some people say, you got to put people up against each other. Well, if you're going to replace a well-qualified judge with experience with someone who hasn't been found well qualified, I don't see any way that could help the public. Unfortunately, we have all party chairmen agreeing with that at this moment, and I think that's very, very good for our judiciary. And if you want to write an article, write about an article that you don't hear anyone attack the judges in Nassau and Suffolk County. Why is that? Because those are judges that have been found well qualified by bipartisan judicial screening committees, and they're acting and serving with distinction in the various courts in this county. So I think it's a very, very good thing. I think it should continue. I hope it will continue because I think it adds to what I think is a better bench.
So, Chris, I can't comment on it, but good thoughts on it. And I just want to talk a little bit about, if you want, the Child Victims Act that was signed into law last year.
Sure, we could talk about that.
I think it's very important, since I started with the firm many, many years ago. You've always assigned me these assault cases, and they're very sad cases, very sensitive topics. You have older men and women grown now with families who feel embarrassed about what happened to them as children and being sexually abused. I couldn't have been happier. It was one of the more happy points of my career when I knew that these people had a right and they had the ability to now make a claim. Last year, the Children's Victims Act was signed into law. It was a huge part of a positive movement to help so many of these adults. And basically, it's a one-year window, which was supposed to end just this month, August 14th, a few days ago, 2020, for anyone between 23 and 55 to bring a claim, pursue legal action in the event you were a victim of sexual abuse. Very thankful, Governor Cuomo extends it because of COVID and adds an additional 6 months. So I urge anyone, please, if you are between 23 and 55 and were a victim of sexual abuse, call our firm, 516-742-0707. We handle these cases with kid gloves. We make it very easy for you, and we know your rights, and you have a right to bring a claim, and we urge you to do that. We're pursuing, Chris, a lot of the Rockefeller University cases, Dr. Reginald Archibald, which you know, and we have done some amazing work on those and gotten some great recoveries for a lot of boys who now are 55, 50, 40, who luckily came forward.
And the sad part about those cases, as you know, is that these kids were brought to that doctor for a specific reason. They didn't show growth as a child. And the parents were like, why aren't they growing in height? This is the person who everybody said was the person. And unfortunately, this person sexually abused, took photographs, touched all of these young children. And he's passed away now, but the records support everything these children have said. And it's very, very sad. On the other hand, you do have some cases that aren't legitimate.
Absolutely.
And that's the sad part of creating an act which does not have a statute of limitations. So what we see, unfortunately, in a minority of the cases are someone is bringing a claim alleging it against a person who is deceased. There's nothing that either the school, the church, or the temple can do to refute those claims because whoever, whether a teacher, a priest, or a rabbi, is now deceased, and sometimes, they're not legitimate and there's no way of stopping it. So the problem and the reason you have statutes of limitations, you should not really be able to bring a case dating back 40 years against an individual who is no longer alive without some sort of proof And in some of these cases, they have none, other than someone sees. We're faced now with the thing is if you read the obituaries, someone can bring a claim against that person the next day knowing that they can't refute it. It's my word against your word, but I don't have anybody to support it. So we look carefully into these cases. Usually you find a pattern involving the particular individual which supports the claim, and it's very, very easy to do that. But on occasion you do have, those people who, for whatever reason, just want to make up a story in order to cash in. And that's a sad part.